In the coming weeks, I will deliberately withdraw more. Not out of frustration, not out of exhaustion, but out of a deep inner necessity. I want to run less, in order to listen more, speak less, in order to write more. And during this time, I will only proclaim the remaining minor prophets, the last urgent impulses that have not yet been spoken, that need to be made clear one last time before I disappear for a while into silence and into the work. My focus is now on a book that has been carrying me for a long time, that shakes me, that challenges me, a book in which I am trying to read the Tanakh, the New Testament, and the Qur'an as a single unified work of God, not separated, not against each other, but as an interconnected mosaic of revelation, as a line that runs from Abraham through Moses, Yeshua, all the way to Muhammad, a line that speaks of the one God who reveals himself in all the scriptures, even though humans keep splitting them apart. One work, not a culture war. In this book it is about stopping the use of the holy scriptures only as weapons against Jews, against Christians, against Muslims, and starting to read them as one shared testimony. It is about understanding that truth is greater than any single religion that claims it for itself. And it is about recognizing that God has not bound himself to one people, one language, one continent, one cult, but that he reveals himself in everything that speaks of love, of justice, and of righteousness. In this context, the special role will fall to the meaning of Jada, not only as a concept, but as a living principle, the gift, the grace, the unearned goodness that appears between all human beings, between friend and stranger, between believer and doubter, between God and human. In this book I will show how Jada acts as a red thread in all three scriptures, not as obligation, but as invitation, not as punishment, but as freedom, not as limitation, but as an expansion of love. Another central point is the question: is same-sex love a sin? In this book my answer will be no, not in the sense of a God who judges his children according to their orientation, not in the sense of a God who closes in instead of opening up. I will show that the texts which are so often quoted to forbid same-sex love, in their context mostly revolve around other things: idolatrous mixed cults, exploitation, violence, sexual desecration, not love, not partnership, not faithfulness. And I will show that the message of love in all the scriptures is louder than the voices of fear and rejection. In doing so I will not hide the surahs, the Bible verses, the texts, but bring them into the open. I will place them side by side, translate them, interpret them, compare them, and I will show that a God who reveals himself in all three scriptures does not fight against his own children, but for them, for all who love, who are faithful, who bind themselves to one another, whether man and woman, man and man, woman and woman. Why this withdrawal then? Why now of all times? Because the time is ripe for a new kind of proclamation. No longer only in short clips, not only in fragments, not only in reactions to the world, but in a coherent, well thought out, deeper work. Because it is no longer enough just to quote verses, to scour surahs in order to be right. It is about doing justice to the people who feel hurt, misunderstood, excluded. It is about understanding the scriptures, not as a cudgel, but as bearers of hope. During this time, you will therefore see less of me in public. I will immerse myself more deeply in the book, in the text, in prayer, in silence. But before I disappear completely, I will still proclaim the remaining minor prophets, the last important points that are still missing, that still need to be clarified after. That you will find me for a while only in the silence, in the words of a book that tries to make the voice of God in all three scriptures into a single shared song.
I am standing at a turning point. I'm stepping back from the daily struggle, from comments, debates, reactions. Not because I have given up, but because a greater work is calling in the coming season. I would only proclaim the remaining minor prophets, close the last open words that still stand between you and me. Then I will go deeper into the silence to write. I am writing a book in which Tanakh, New Testament and Qur'an are no longer separate camps, but one great shared testimony. I ask, what does the Tanakh say about Jada? About knowing, knowledge, grace, about the name Jada as he knows he is known. What do the Gospels say when we separate text from dogma? What does the Qur'an really say when we listen to the Arabic wording, to Lot, to the stories of mercy, and not only to later legal opinions? And I ask, is same-sex love really a sin? Or are it our systems that condemn love where God actually knows, blesses, and says, this love comes from me? I pull back from the noisy room, turn the feeds down, rewrite the tune. I was live so long, clips every second on track. But what is coming now needs depth, needs a holy tact. The minor prophets still remain to be told. A few last messages, then I am heading home. Home into text, into nights full of light, into pages on fire, full of questions, full of sight. Tanakh, the gospel, Qur'an in my view, not against each other, but in layers of truth, like the triptychs that belongs together, one chord, three languages, one breath, one disturbing Lord. I no longer ask, what must I believe because some church declared it right? I ask, what does the text bear? What carries the light? What does the grammar say? What does history show? What does love say? What do real weights disclose? Where does dogma start? Where does text still flow? Where does tradition bend the original road? I go into Hebrew, I go into Arabic deep. I listen to the sound before systems could speak. Radically honest, I'm going back to the work before we built our walls. I wanna see the text in the breath of its call. Tanakh, New Testament, Qur'an, one river, not a fight, one God shining through the lines of our rights. I am stepping back, but I am not gone. I am writing a book stone by stone, verse by verse, line by line, on and on, about Jada, about love we misnamed as wrong, about a God who knows us and knows more than our systems all along. I see Jada in the Hebrew, meaning to know. Not just in the head, but a nearness that grows, a name that says he knows, he has known. An echo of a God who calls humans by name, his own. when God knows. It is not a cold stare through you. It is a love that calls you back step by step into truth, like in Genesis when a person knows and is known. And from encounter, life ignites and is sown. Jada becomes the key to my wider view. A God who is not blind to what fulfills you, who sees deeper than labels and norm, who weighs heart and faithfulness, not only form. I read the Tanakh.
Where does it merely say what we teach is rule?
I read the Qur'an.
What does the text say before law books turn it?
I read the New Testament.
Where does love speak? Where does abuse take hold?
I sorted out violence is sin, not love's desire. Rape is sin, not tender fire. I ask, where were Lot's stories twisted and bent, until the cry against violence became a verdict against love misspent?
God knows.
He sees you clear,
Not as a mistake.
but as part of his idea.
Same-sex love.
No punishment, no shame, if it is faithful, if it carries, it is planted in his name. The scriptures are wide, wider than we thought before. It was humans who made them narrow at the core. I sing you a song against the fear in the frame, for all who whisper the way that I love. That is how God called my name. Yes, the Tanakh has bans, but look closely and see. Who do they address? Which context? What key? Not every line about a man with a man in a bed targets love, but often violence, power, foreign cult instead. The Qur'an tells of Lot and the men of the town. Many just read men with men and shut the whole thing down. But others say God condemns the violence, the rape, not a just, mutual, equal-hearted shape. Between tradition and text there is a living space where love can breathe, not just the old threat-based place of punishment, terror, of hell and ban. I am writing that God can love in a different span. I hear the voices saying, but religion was always against this way. Yet I see scholars reading anew today, imams and rabbis who dare to say, love is grace. There was harshness in Sharia, harshness in church's word, but also poetry that left same-sex love unstirred. The question is, whom do you let speak? The fear or the light? The latest tradition or the original sight? I am writing a book about text we misuse for control, about verses torn from context that poison the soul. A book that says same-sex love is not a sin when it is rooted in respect, in truth and faithfulness within. God knows you, Jada. He calls your name, whether you love a man or a woman the same. I am stepping back so I can write this clear for those who have been crushed between text and shame for years. Imagine this: Tanakh, New Testament and Qur'an sit at one table. No weapons, just words, bread and fish if you are able. They tell of a God who loves justice and right, who protects the stranger, who gives to the poor in the night. Imagine this: they speak of a love that breaks all walls, of covenants not chained to gender at all, but to faithfulness, to heart, to dignity, to meaning. And imagine this: that God leans in and softly is speaking. I imagined you far wider than your systems dare to dream. Chapters on Jada, on knowing as a holy act, not only in a marriage of woman and man, but wherever love lives and truth stands intact. I write chapters on Lot, on violence and on hospitality, on how we turn one story into enemies that were never meant to be. out churches that cast out the queer, mosques, synagogues, communities that broke hearts in God's name for years. And I write about those who read and knew, who hear again, liberal imams, theologians, scholars who say love cannot be slain. I am stepping back, but I am not pulling the ground from under your feet. I am making space so what I have only hinted at can finally grow deep roots and a solid roof above. It will be a book for the seekers, for the wounded, for those who thought God has rejected me just because they love differently than they were ever allowed to be. I stand with you who loves your own gender and truth. I tell you, you are no mistake, no matter what any system wrote over your youth. The God of the Tanakh, the God of the Gospel, the God of the Qur'an has more mercy in his heart than any dogmatic plan. I am only stepping back to say this well and clean, to wrestle every verse and surah, every line we have seen. Just a few more prophets, then all my time belongs to writing this book for you, for now, for all of time. This is not a song against church, not a song against mosque, not a song against synagogue. It is a song against the misuse of text, against fear and religious code. It is a song for the God who knows before we explain, who sees before we defend, who loves before we twist ourselves in pain. Jada, he knows, he sees, he cares, and if he made you to love the way you do, why should we dare to throw away his work in you? I am going into silence to write all this down. Tanakh, New Testament, Qur'an, 3 witnesses crowned. I will show you Jada, the God who knows and sees, who does not curse same-sex love, but receives it as one form of his love's release. This is my farewell for a time, not a farewell forever. A retreat so the next words can become clearer, deeper, truer together, so your heart no longer shakes under false religious guilt and weather. I will still share the remaining minor prophets with you, then I will grow quieter. But I will not be gone. I will be inside the text, between the lines of Tanakh, Gospel, and Qur'an. I will be wrestling with Jada, with the God who knows and sees who you are. And when I return with this book, I want to be able to say, I was honest with the languages, I was honest with the verses, I was honest with God, and I was honest with you, with those who love the way they were created to love.